This exercise is going to be a stretch to improve your inner thigh flexibility, which is called the frog stretch. It can be a really intense stretch, so we want to proceed with caution, and we want to make sure we're feeling what we should be feeling and avoiding any pinching or pain or sensations that might indicate we are pushing into some joint compression, which is not going to feel good down the road. So to start with this exercise, you're going to start here, up onto your hands. We're gonna sink into the stretch as much as you can tolerate, keeping your knees at about 90 degrees and keeping your ankles at about 90 degrees, not too far out or in. And then drop down to your elbows and you can sink into it more, and then you're gonna rock your hips back. Most often I will cue an anterior pelvic tilt or arching. Some people tend to find more of a stretch when they round. Neither of those is right or wrong. It just depends on where you want to feel the sensation and what you feel when you do it. What we are looking for is inside thigh stretching. What we are making sure we're avoiding is a deep pinch here in the hip joint. So we don't want to feel deep pinching. If you are holding the stretch for flexibility gains, you're going to start with what you can tolerate. So if I push into this stretch, I can make it a very intense stretch, but if I'm new, I'm gonna start at like a 4 to 5 out of 10 intensity stretch. And I'm gonna try to hold it for 30 seconds to start. And we're gonna build our time up to 2 minutes over several weeks. 2 minutes is the ideal time to hold the stretch. That is going to be the flexibility component. Now, if I am doing PAILs and rails to add some strength to my end ranges and to get access to deeper positions, those are going to start after the stretch is complete, or I'm gonna skip the stretch and start with those. For the PAILs and rails, for your adductors or inner thighs, you're gonna think about squeezing your knees into the ground like we're trying to crush the mat or the earth towards each other without coming out of the position. You're gonna start at about a 10% contraction, and you're slowly going to contract harder and harder from 10 to 20, up to 40, 60, and then from there up to the prescribed or desired intensity, anywhere from 60 to 70 up to 100. Maybe you're even starting at a lower intensity. Whatever your program says, you're gonna hold that for the desired amount of time, typically around 10 seconds to get to the desired intensity, about 10 or 15 seconds holding at that position, and then you're gonna relax. That is your PAILs contraction. Rails is going to be finding these outside glutes. Now, instead of pulling the earth towards each other, you're gonna try to make a crack in the earth between your legs. So you're gonna try to pry them apart and sink deeper into that stretch. Now, we don't want to pull ourselves into a stretch that is intolerable. So we want to start light and ramp that intensity up to what we can tolerate. You don't have to sink into a deeper stretch, but if you can, you want to work up to that intensity. And then you should feel your outer glutes contracting, starting at like a 10 to 20, and then squeezing harder and harder up to the desired intensity over about 10 to 15 seconds. Holding at that intensity for another 10 to 15 seconds, like so, and then ramping down, and then slowly coming out of it as gracefully as you can, which for most people is a flop because it's a very intense stretch. So when you are in that stretch, you should make sure you feel it in the inner thighs. It can kind of come up towards your pelvis and pubic bone. We just don't want to feel that deep pinch in the hip. And then when we do our PAILs, those are the muscles that we feel contracting. Rails should be those outer glutes contracting, thinking about pulling the legs apart. And that would be one round of PAILs and rails. Depending on what you're doing that day, you might do another, or that might be the end of your program. You want to make sure that you follow what it says. But progression over time is just gonna be being able to tolerate a deeper stretch, being able to access those tissues a little bit more and squeeze a little bit more intensely. And over time, you should feel like your adductors and inner thigh muscles are improving in flexibility.